There are basically two different ways to create levitation photography, and I'm going to go over those two different ways in this tutorial. I am not by any stretch of the imagination an expert in this, so hopefully you can take the information that I give you, add to it, and come up with some really good ideas yourself. The first way and easiest way to do levitation photography is just to take a picture of a friend or an object that is in mid-air, something that you throw up in the air, or someone that is jumping down or jumping up, and you just want to catch them mid-air. You want to make sure that your shutter speed is relatively quick though. You want the image that is supposed to be levitating to be really tack sharp. And in this particular image, it wasn't as sharp as I wanted it to be. You can see down here on the shoe there's a little bit of blurring, kind of showing movement. There's a little bit of blurring around the face as well. So my shutter speed on this image was not as high as I should have had it. And I was already increasing my ISO to the point where I was actually getting a little bit of noise in the picture, and I didn't want to push it any further. But that is definitely one way that you can do it. Just one picture, you don't need any software, and you're done. This is another example of the same type of thing. This is a friend of mine that we were trying to create a Halloween image for one of my Halloween albums, and she was basically falling backwards from a bench that was at the foot of the bed, and I was trying to catch her mid-air just above the bed to make it look like she was levitating just above the bed. Obviously, timing is crucial. If you do it too late, it won't work, and if you do it too early, it won't work. We did a couple of these, and some of them came out a little bit better than the others, but we weren't sure that the bed was going to hold up, and obviously I didn't want her to get hurt. So we switched over to the second way to do it, which is basically to have her resting on something and then remove that object that she's resting on out of the picture. And I think it came out looking pretty good that way. So then the question becomes, well, how do you do it? Basically what you need is a camera on a tripod, and you want that tripod aiming at an area, and you want to make sure that the tripod or the camera does not move between shots. And you need at least two shots. You need one shot with the person leaning on something. In this particular example, she's leaning on a stool. And then you want your second shot just of the area with her and the object that she is lying on out of the picture. You want to make sure that your camera is set on manual mode. You want the exposures between the two images to be pretty much spot on. You also want the camera not to move so that all of your edges and all of your lines match up between the images. You can do it without a tripod, but it takes a little bit of time afterwards, making sure the images are all lined up. So then what you do at that point is you take the image with your person levitating, you copy that image out, and you place it on top of the image with just a blank background. So now I basically have those two images that I'm working on here together. You have the first image, which is her on the stool, and the bottom image, which is just a clear background. On the image with the stool, you want to create a layer mask. You want to create your brush. Select your brush. You want to make sure you're selecting black. Black will allow you to paint an area and let the background show through, and you'll see what that looks like here in a minute. And then you just want to paint away the stool. So basically I'm taking away the stool out of the top image, and I'm allowing the background from that bottom image to come through the image, to come through the picture. And I'm doing this super quick. Obviously if you're doing this on your own, you might want to take a little more time at it, make it a little better. And then that's it. You have removed the stool, and it looks like she's levitating. She's not really lying against anything. You could stop right there if you wanted to, but on this particular image I saw there was a couple of things I wanted to fix. So then you basically flatten the image or merge your images together so that you just have one image. And you can see here kind of where the stool was. And actually there's a little bit of the stool still there, so I'm going to take that out. But you can see where the stool was. There's kind of this real sharp area in her dress, and it doesn't look really convincing. It looks like there's probably something there. And I'm probably a little pickier than I should be, but that's the first thing that I thought of when I saw the image. So there's a couple of different ways that you can fix that. You can clone stamp the belt and kind of fill that in here at the bottom. Let's kind of make it look a little more natural. And then the next thing that you can do is you can grab some of the dress that's below. And I loved that she had this really textured patterned dress, because it made it really easy to do this. So you just grab a section of the dress, you copy it out with Control J, you then move that section up to where you want it to kind of fill in that gap, and you can rotate it and bend it and kind of do whatever you need to do with it just to get it about where you want it. And I would say about there is pretty good. And again, the patterns on this dress really made it pretty easy to do that. But then you still have these sharp edges of where you grabbed the dress before and where the grass is. That's something you can fix relatively easy. Again, you want to do another layer mask just on that part that you copied out. Again, grab another brush, paint with black, and you can take out that edge, bring the belt back, and then maybe here on the back side where you grabbed so it looks like it's part of the dress. And again, I'm doing this really quickly, but there you filled in that little area that looked like an L where you could see a little bit of the stool. Kind of made the dress look a little bit funny, and that's perfect. I mean, I think that's pretty much all you need to do. If you wanted to, if you had a scene that had a lot of shadowing in it, you could add shadows to it. In this particular one, we didn't have a lot of shadowing just because of how the sun was setting. But if you did have a sun that was a little more overhead, or you had the planters had some shadowing on it, or the fence had a little more shadowing on it, you could add shadowing on your levitating person to kind of mimic that. And what I do is I will grab the burn tool and I will burn in shadows. And I'll keep the exposure relatively low because I want it to be very subtle. And then I will paint over the image a couple of different times, just about where her body is, to add a little bit of a shadow. You could do midtones too. Or you could change the opacity on that as well. But you kind of get the idea of how to add a shadow after the fact. But again, in our image, we really didn't have any shadows, so I didn't see any need to add one to it. So that is basically how you create a levitation image. It's really easy to do. I'm using Photoshop CS4. It's a really older version of Photoshop. You could obviously do it in the newer versions. You could do it in versions that are even older than CS4, or you can do it in other paint programs that allow you to create layers and merge them together doing that. The only other thing we did on this image was we took out the wheelbarrow, not for any particular reason, but we just kind of took it out. And to do that, you go and grab your clone stamp tool, grab some fencing over here, kind of line up the slats, and then just kind of paint it out. And again, I'm doing this really quickly, just to give you an idea of how to do it. And that's it. You've taken out the wheelbarrow. So now you have a fairly convincing levitating picture. That's relatively easy to do. So there you go. I hope you will add on this and come up with your own image. I'd love to see them. And I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye.